I am Dr. Regina Davis Moss, and as always, Outspoken is our space to speak our truth and stand together through the challenges, the urgency, and everything in between.
A lot of people don't understand the difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Please.
So, misinformation is, think of it literally like MIS, like a miss. So it's kind of like an accidental implant of things that are not true. So if you play telephone in school and you say one thing and it's supposed to pass down, and by the time it gets to that last person, it's something entirely different. That's kind of how misinformation works. It doesn't have to be intentional. It can be damaging just the same, but it doesn't have to be intentional. Now, disinformation is a concentrated, intentional effort to spread information that is false. So this didn't happen at all. All right. So the Southern strategy, the idea that the South after slavery made it a point to try to change the way that people saw slavery and how they saw the Civil War. The Southern strategy, that didn't happen at all. That wasn't a real thing. Disinformation, because you are making a point to spread something that is not false. That is not true. You're making an intentional choice to spread something that is false. So misinformation and disinformation, that's the difference. And the way that shows up in reproductive justice, I can't think of another way of another area of work that is so surrounded by misinformation and disinformation.
It's not about abortion, it's about bodily autonomy as a whole. It's about the right to have children, it's about the right to not have children, and it's about the right to being able to express yourself freely in terms of your sexuality and in terms of pleasure. So I always have to tell people that it's not just about abortion, and whatever your views on abortion are, it's still reproductive justice is still, there's still other components of it that affect your life just as greatly as abortion, and whatever your stance is on that.
We're talking centuries of violence against Black women and our bodies, starting with kidnapping us from the continent and using us for reproduction, right? So there was a systemic and systematic degendering of Black women in the sense that we had to be objects, right? We had to be products. And so that denied us the so-called femininity or the womanhood that white women had access to. And womanhood is protected by men. And so when you render Black women without womanhood, they don't get the same protections. And if their primary responsibility is to produce more labor for this capitalist system, right, there's not really much regard for them outside of what their bodies can produce. They don't care about their health. They don't care about their well-being or anything like that. And Black women were deemed useless if they could not do that, right? So it starts there.
Black maternal health is not a bad thing. Black maternal health and our freedom is what we're trying to achieve. And there's a practice behind it, okay? And that is still different from maternal mortality. And when we add the phrase Black maternal mortality, just wanting for our audience to understand that we're in particular talking about those specific data points that showcases the disparity of rates and how maternal mortality is more, has a higher risk of experience for Black people, right? But that does not mean that you as an individual Black person, Black birthing person, Black woman, that because you are attempting to get pregnant or are pregnant, that all of a sudden something terrible is going to happen to you. It's a risk factor based upon our experiences and how we are treated. So going back to just lifting up what Dr. Crystal mentioned before, that we don't want to further perpetuate individual assumptions of Blackness. Blackness is wonderful, is beautiful, is great.
The sentiment around becoming pregnant, making whatever decision they want to make that's best for their bodies, their families, their futures, their communities, isn't wrapped around fear. Fear related to birthing outcomes. It's something that folks hold and understand, if folks decide to enter into that decision, what risks are associated with that. it's wrapped around the shit show of our lives. that is this, like, not just economy, political landscape, cultural landscape, the lack of resources. And this is folks that are deeper within those margins, right? They're like, how I'm not even eating. I'm scared to get out of my house because somebody might unalive me. My emotional and psychological safety and physical safety is threatened day to day. Like, if I'm not thriving, if I'm not well, how can I bring another little human being into this world? And as folks on the panel was saying, systems aren't set up for us. As Dr. T was saying, services don't support not just the folks who are pregnant, but afterwards.
Our current fight to save Medicaid. That is in and of itself a reproductive justice issue. And so as the co-chair of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus, again, this is some of the storytelling is so important. And this is, some of the work that I'm doing every day, every moment that I have in these remaining hours, because this bill, it's not a budget, it's a betrayal. Donald Trump characterizes it as a big, beautiful bill. It is big, all right, and it is ugly. And, when it comes to reproductive justice, it's especially harmful. Everybody deserves compassionate care, agency and choices, safe pregnancies, wraparound supports, as well as the ability to structurally thrive for your babies to get the nutrition they need and for your family to sustain. And when you want to deny people health care, when you want to not just deny, kick off, okay, 14 million people, we're taking it away. When you want to take food, out of the mouths of our babies, it's an urgent situation. So I just want to make an appeal that as ugly as this bill is, as much of a betrayal it is, as shameful and unconscionable as it is not an inevitability. We just need, 4 Republicans of conscience to center their constituents, their daily, struggles, and to do right by the people who sent them here.
It's not saying it couldn't still happen, but I noticed it's not on their list of priorities by any means. We saw that even in states where Kamala Harris lost, abortion rights won on the ballot.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think that has scared them into understanding that abortion rights are not as partisan as they think they are.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. And they know it's unpopular, and they've kind of rolled back. They tried to test the waters too with coming after IVF, and now they've kind of rolled back on that. And I think they got a little shaky because they realized they don't know the women in their own party as well as they thought they did. And some of the women in their own party didn't wake up enough to swing that vote, but they woke up a little bit to understand that these men are coming after them and their healthcare too. And so I think that's where we're going to see that hope. That line right there, which every prediction, unfortunately, I had came true, except that one. And that threw me for a loop. And I say that as someone who I still work, not speaking on behalf of the federal government, obviously right now, but I still work at the FDA. Somehow I'm not fired. And so I've been closely monitoring the situation.
And you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't even know.
I know. I'm just like all over the place. I know I went downtown yesterday for the hearing that Jasmine Crockett was at. And I think it was Hakeem Jeffries, one of his staffers actually said, they said, I don't know when you sleep. And they said, did you go to I said, yeah, I worked my job. I worked my full-time job today. And then I came down here and they were like, oh, girl. And I think I'm going to need some sleep after this. But I'm going to tell you right now, in the short term, in the interim, there's not a lot of rest. We've got to get through some of this chaos. Right now, they're really throwing every bit of chaos and confusion they can. They're slowing down a little bit. I can see little bits folding like lawn chairs on some of the legal challenges. I see it happening. And from the inside, I see what's going on. They're getting tired out and they ain't got the money or the manpower to keep fighting lawsuits.
One of the things that I had to learn, I wasn't socialized as a man, right? I had to pick up all of the things that I managed to pick up, some of which I realized pretty quickly I needed to put back down, right? Like I actually, early in my early days of transition, it's like, well, if I'm going to be a man, then I have to be like this or that or the other. It's like, no, I actually get to decide the kind of man I want to be. And I think that's a good message for every person who is male identified in this world. Like, you actually get to be the man you want to be. You don't have to be dictated to. It actually gives you more power to get to decide how you show up in the world and who you're going to support, how you're going to care for yourself, how you're going to care for your people, and how you're going to be invested in the lives of people you don't even know.
I think that I feel like there are a lot of I feel like there's a lot of young Gen Zers and millennials that have taken heed to people like bell hooks and really thinking about how masculinity, and particularly Black masculinity, is structured or positioned within, you know, white supremacy. I think people like Just Wayne. I feel like there's a lot of content creators. You feel me? I can think of Political Plug, Perfect Profit, Too Raw, Too Real. I feel like Black men that appeal to different, you know, younger audience that perform masculinity and perform, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like we thinking about Michael being very intentional, perform a particular type of cis masculinity that resonates with individuals that's not structured around being aggressive or being around, you feel me, rejection and all that. It's like really structured around how can I be a human and how can I really be more accepting of humanity. The last thing I'll say in this response is something that really resonated with me when I was young. I was 19. Name was Joan Morgan. She wrote When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost, like a hip hop feminism. One of her chapters talking about feeling like a slave of a slave. And the time I heard that is when I was really on, like, I would call it a civil rights high. I was really like on my Black man, Huey P. Newton, Stokely Carmichael. That's what I was really like eating up. You see what I'm saying? This work right here made me think about oppression in a different way and thinking like, all right, as a Black man, can you say you are against oppression when it comes to your community if some people identify you as the oppressor inside the community?
It was about being able to control their own lives and the communities and the institutions they built and that they were investing in. So they wanted to vote for a sheriff that would protect them from the Klan. They wanted to vote for a school board or a budget that would invest in the schools that they built, right? That the institutions they built, that they were paying taxes into, and they were not getting their fair share for their communities and their children.
I don't require anything from the people I serve. It's reparations based, and my service to my community is getting reparations. My donor base are white people who understand I'm collecting reparations, who give so I can give money directly to Black marginalized genders. I believe in giving Black people autonomy. You know what bill needs to be paid. You know what groceries you need to buy. I don't like micromanaging people. I bring to this, I've had several careers. I was a case manager. I was a social worker. I was a disease surveillance investigator. I was a sexual health educator. So I bring all of those roles to trying to alleviate people. So my service to my community is problem solving, triaging, finding out what's important, what needs to be taken care of so they can move on to their next step.
My grandmother was also the medicine woman. She took care of everybody who was sick. And really, I see that kind of revolution happening right now in the birth with doulas and midwives who were once criminalized from even doing this, from supporting birthing people. And so I think it's tapping back into the resistance that we already know, skill sharing. There are some things that we've forgotten how to do. I used to watch my mother and grandmother can food at the end of the summer. You know, those kinds of things we need to do to preserve, to be able to feed ourselves, to be able to take care of ourselves, to be able to build economy for ourselves.
Observation that I saw on Threads today, and it was talking about how people are trying to police Cardi B's joy of being pregnant with her fourth child and trying to decide for her what she can handle, what she wants, what she doesn't want, even though she will have 4 children who have 2 different fathers, right? But she's obviously very happy. And reproductive rights don't just come with like the decision to not have children, but also not policing the joy when women choose to have children or build their family, even if it's non-traditional or in a way I or you necessarily wouldn't. And I thought that was such a good point, especially when we talk about pop culture. I mean, we have a president got how many baby mamas?
Black feminist tradition and practice, it's absolutely telling our stories. We're truth tellers. That's another thing that they resist, is us, not, counteracting these narratives. So continuing to tell our stories, continuing to be truth tellers, continuing to mobilize, organize, fight, whatever and however ways we can, and just also remembering that can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be. I talked to a couple of founding mothers of our movement, and a lot of them shared that when they came into that room 30 years ago, they weren't all the traditional activists as we think of them when we think of them at this time. They saw a need, they saw something wasn't right, and they stepped in and said, we need to do something about it.
I've mentioned this. So we meet with senators and representatives all the time. And it was a closed door and it was about 25 people. And I said, if I don't take my phone out, can you answer these questions? And they were like, yes. And I was asking them why at the Democratic Party, we don't have a Project 2028. And they were saying, because we're not a party of followers. We won't have one person that will create a document and everyone will get behind it. We ideate ourselves out of these major things where someone's going to create it and they'll be like, what does this person know? Or what does this person know? The Republican Party, even if they don't like this person, like we even saw before Trump was elected, maybe 60% of the people in his party didn't agree with him. He got elected. They were like, well, it is what it is. I don't necessarily know if we need to take a page out of that playbook. I'm not going to say that. But the way that their party functions is so profoundly different than ours. And so we would have to just shift a few things to the point where if we do create something like that, we would have to make the decision as a party for us to all get behind it.
What makes my life possible is being in New Orleans. We celebrate everything: food, dance, music, food, dance, music. And so even when my culture in New Orleans, that even the worst things, we have to find time for celebration. We have to find time to love on each other, be with each other. And in this moment, I think that the ways that Black people are going to survive is by finding each other.
I think that when I say our communities right now, I'm talking about Black communities. And we need to be prepared to be of mutual aid and assistance to each other. We need to be prepared for the worst, for the unspeakable and the unknown.
Despite these very alarming and even depressing times, what brings me joy and gives me the hope to continue struggling against injustice is coming together with other activists who share my values, who share my vision, who share my hope, and celebrating the victories that we do have and celebrating our vision for a better world and our belief, our commitment that we can build a better world.
And people don't often think about DC as a colony, but it truly is. It is a place very much like Puerto Rico or US Samoa that is a federal colony that does not have statehood. And so that legal loophole, that the inability of DC residents to have statehood has really amplified the type of terrible federal enforcement that we are seeing on the ground.
I think the biggest issue about Memphis and this Memphis Safe Task Force is that people aren't talking about it as much as other places, but we have the most federal agents of any city right now that has a deployment. There's ICE agents, but also there's all these federal agents that are doing these racially profiling traffic stops. And that's what's making the biggest impact on the city. That's what's causing the biggest amount of harm. People getting tickets from like a state trooper is actually way different from a city ticket that's $21. State trooper tickets are $150 plus. So it's also causing great economic harm on people because you can get pulled over multiple times in a week. We've had folks get pulled over 3 times in a day.
So I have the absolute privilege of being connected to a lot of organizers and the Black and Brown community here in Seattle. So one of my good friends is Ijoma Oluo, and she started in late spring monthly community gatherings. And so we there's food and it's about 4 hours or 3 or 4 hours. And we, from all different parts of Seattle, and we talk about what are the ways we are going to protect each other. How do we get to know our neighbors? At the last one, in fact, because Seattle's pretty spread out geographically. So we got together in neighborhoods and we created a group chat, and we are becoming hyper local and encouraging. One of the things I said is get to know your neighbors. You don't have to like your neighbors. And, one of the things that one of the points she made was, I don't like, it's not about not liking, but it's not about being best friends with everyone. It is making sure you have everyone's number, who is on your block or who is in your building. And the thing about Seattle is it's harder for some folks here. I'm from the Northeast and I'm an Arab. So it's, hello, how are you is my baseline, and getting to connect in community. That is not necessarily the baseline for everyone. And really folks have to learn. And in Seattle, I will say there has been a concerted effort to connect and to really make space for what does it mean to have community. I mean, I see signs in my neighborhood of, hey, come to the community center for a potluck, come meet your neighbors. That has been, so I've lived in the house that I'm in right now since for 5 years, but before that I came to Seattle in 2013. I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you to everyone who's watching, for staying connected, for staying informed, and staying committed to this work. Stay grounded, stay present, and above all, stay outspoken.